About an hour ago, several law enforcement vehicles drove through the gates into Paisley Park. The Carver County Sheriff says that detectives are revisiting the scene.
Just behind me, you can see the makeshift memorial. This is the home that Michael Jackson rented. He didn't own it.
There are places once filled with music and laughter, now left with only a haunting silence. The lavish mansions that once belonged to Black R&B legends now stand abandoned, with no one daring to come near. Their prices have plummeted, not because of the land or architecture, but because of the shadows of the past dark, mysterious stories that still cling to them. These aren't just empty houses, they're shattered fragments of memories, places that witnessed the heights of glory and the depths of horrific tragedies for their owners. The secrets buried within the walls of the 19 mansions listed below are the most vivid proof of loneliness, of the silent nightmares that plagued stars who once burned brightly on stage. Open the doors to these places, and you'll see where legends rest. Darkness can cast its heaviest shadow. 19. Donny Hathaway, the short-lived genius and the gloomy Chicago house. Donny Hathaway was one of the legendary voices of R&B and soul. With songs like A Song for You or Someday We'll All Be Free, he melted hearts with his aching, soul-stirring voice, once a pride of Chicago. Donny wasn't just an artist, he was an icon of raw emotion, a man whose talent touched the soul. But behind that spotlight was a string of dark days, starting right in the place he called home. The house on South Shore Drive, in Chicago's South Side, was once his sanctuary, where he lived with his wife and kids in the 1970s. But few knew that behind the masterful music echoing from the living room were sleepless nights where he sat in the dark, eyes wide open, as if possessed. His wife would find him muttering to himself for hours, sometimes screaming in the middle of the night, other times silent for days. Arguments between the couple grew more frequent, and the house slowly turned into a suffocating box, trapping a fracturing mind. In 1978, just months before his death, Donny left the house multiple times with no one knowing where he went. Once, he vanished for 3 days, returning with a panicked look, clothes disheveled, hands trembling. No one in the house dared ask what he'd been through. Then, in January 1979, the tragic news hit. Donny died after falling from the 15th floor of a New York hotel. They said it was his choice. But with everything that happened in that Chicago house, no one could be sure. Some speculated he was haunted, or perhaps psychologically manipulated. After his death, the house was abandoned. The family never returned. Rumors spread that at night, faint piano notes could be heard from Donny's old room. Some fans sneaked in, sitting in the cold, empty house, as if searching for the soul of a forgotten genius. Once a hub of artistic brilliance, the house is now just a relic, a testament to the untold inner turmoil of a legend. 18. Otis Redding, the fallen legend and the haunted ranch, after the spotlight. Otis Redding was a name that silenced America every time he sang. With Sittin' on the Dock of the Bay, he became a soul icon, a voice bursting with raw, honest emotion. But his peak didn't last long before tragedy struck. Everything collapsed in a single day. Big O Ranch, a sprawling estate in the suburbs of Macon, Georgia, was what Otis called paradise, located on the quiet Round Oak, Juliet Road. It wasn't just a home, but an open-air studio where he wrote music, raised chickens, played with his kids, and escaped the pressures of fame. But in December 1967, everything changed forever. Just days after recording his timeless hit, Otis died in a plane crash in Wisconsin. The world froze, and in Georgia, Big O Ranch plunged into chaos. His family couldn't bear to stay. His wife, Zelma, was swept into a storm of lawsuits, record labels, business partners, old friends. Everyone wanted a piece of his legacy. Rumors of family disputes surfaced. One side wanted to sell the ranch to pay debts. The other insisted on keeping it as a sacred symbol. The feud dragged on for years, tying Otis Redding's name more to loss than to music. All eyes turned to Big O Ranch, not out of love for Otis, but for the massive value his legacy left behind. Big O Ranch, once a haven for a legend, now carries a heavy air, as if cursed, for a time. The house sat empty amid the disputes. Weeds overtook the yard, lights stayed off for weeks, people passed by, staring with a mix of admiration and regret, then shuddered and moved on. The house was no longer a home, it was a witness to a fractured family and a legacy fought over to its core. 17. Marvin Gaye, a horrific tragedy in the house of death in the heart of Los Angeles. Marvin Gaye was the soul of American music, with his mesmerizing voice and timeless hits like What's Going On and Sexual Healing. He didn't just touch listeners' hearts, he became a timeless icon. But behind the glamour was a downward spiral, and the house in Crenshaw, where he spent his final years, was the stage for a tragedy that shocked the world. Around 1975, Marvin Gaye moved into the house at 2107 Gramercy Place, Crenshaw, Los Angeles, on the outside. It was a peaceful, cozy mansion with a spacious garden and luxurious interiors. But inside, it held enough tension, pain, and secrets no one wanted to revisit. Marvin was broke and emotionally drained. Tax debts loomed, and divorce left him destitute. The IRS threatened to seize the house. Mornings here no longer echoed with soulful melodies, only stress and dread. This was also when his relationships grew chaotic. Heated arguments with his second wife, Janice Hunter, led neighbors to call the police, and some all-night parties spiraled out of control, with shady figures showing up, further tarnishing Marvin's public image. But nothing compared to the tragedy of April 1, 1984. A fierce argument broke out between Marvin and his father, Marvin Gaye Sr., in the upstairs bedroom. Words turned to violence. Minutes later, a gunshot rang out. The father used a gun Marvin had given him to shoot his own son dead. In the place that was once a home, a musical genius fell, turning the house into a permanent symbol of a legend's cruel end. Marvin's mother sold it soon after, unable to live with the painful memories. But no one dared buy it because of the story locked within its walls. 16. Rick James, the Hollywood mansion and a superstar's slide into disaster. Rick James ruled funk and R&B, with Super Freak becoming a cultural anthem. His rebellious style, fiery hits, and magnetic charisma launched him to the top. In the 1980s and 90s, he lived like a king in a lavish Hollywood Hills mansion where every party began and every tragedy erupted. By 1991, the mansion at 8900 Hollywood Boulevard was no longer a musical paradise. It became the scene of a shocking scandal when Rick and his girlfriend were accused of kidnapping and assaulting a woman inside the house. Drugs, violence, and damning testimonies flooded the headlines. Police raided the place. The media lined up outside, cameras aimed at a house once lit by stage lights. What happened behind those doors was called a den of debauchery, drugs, alcohol, and reckless behavior. Rick was convicted, and the mansion, once a symbol of success, became a symbol of collapse. His reputation crashed. After prison, things didn't improve. Financial chaos, legal fees, and addiction dragged Rick into bankruptcy. The once glamorous mansion was mired in debt and tension. He fought to keep it. But the air inside grew heavier with foreclosure threats. Rick vowed to revive his career from that house, but it never happened. On August 6, 2004, Rick was found dead in his bedroom in the mansion. The cause was heart failure, with multiple drugs found in his system. No one was shocked. Many saw it coming. The mansion stood witness to a legend's painful fall. Unpaid debts led to the bank seizing and selling it for a fraction of its worth. No more stage lights, just a house that once hosted endless parties. Now a bitter reminder of the cost of an uncontrolled life. 15. Whitney Houston, from the pinnacle of fame to a foreclosed mansion and a family curse. Whitney Houston was an irreplaceable icon of global music, with her powerhouse voice and hits like I Will Always Love You. She soared to the top. But behind the spotlight was a life of turmoil, and her Alpharetta, Georgia, mansion witnessed it all. The house in a quiet suburb was where Whitney sought refuge from scandals, cameras, and to raise her daughter, Bobby Christina, hoping to rebuild her life. But it was also where everything began to unravel. By the early 2000s, signs of trouble were clear in that lavish mansion. Constant fights with Bobby Brown turned it into a war zone. Police were called multiple times after explosive conflicts. The air inside felt suffocating. Some said, like a battlefield behind closed doors. By 2006, financial woes hit. Whitney couldn't pay the mortgage. The mansion was foreclosed and auctioned off for half its original price. She lost everything. The image of a superstar leaving her home was hounded by the media, TV, papers, social media, drowning her in rumors and humiliation. They called it the diva's most painful fall. After Whitney's death in 2012 in Beverly Hills, you'd think the tragedy ended. It didn't. Bobby Christina, her daughter, fell into the same spiral. Just 3 years later, Bobby was found unconscious in a bathtub. 2 deaths, eerily similar. 2 women of the same bloodline who lived 14 years in that house, sharing a haunting end in a cruel cycle, even in different places. From then on, the Alpharetta house was no longer called a mansion. It became a symbol of a curse, a dark past no one dared touch. 14. Sam Cooke, the star gunned down in a suspected assassination. His Lux mansion turned to ruins. Sam Cooke was a name no one in soul music could overlook, a pioneer of modern R&B. The voice behind A Change Is Gonna Come, he stood at the crossroads of fame and social activism. Rich, successful, and owner of a lavish mansion in the Hollywood Hills, but none of it could save him from a death shrouded in mystery. Hollywood Hills. Early 1960s. The mansion on Sunset Boulevard was Sam's paradise. It had a private pool, a personal studio, and glass doors opening to a stunning view of Los Angeles. By day, Cooke composed. By night, the elite of the entertainment world filled the house with parties. Life seemed perfect. But in one fateful night in late 1964, it all fell apart. On December 11th, Sam Cooke was shot dead at a rundown motel on South Figueroa Street. The news sent shockwaves through the public. Strangely, his death turned attention back to the Hilltop Mansion, the symbol of his peak. Reporters swarmed, fans gathered. The house was dissected for every detail. Some said Sam was lured into a trap from the wild parties held there. Others claimed the mansion was broken into weeks before his death, with documents vanishing. No one knew if they were tied to his quiet fight for black artists' rights. One thing was certain, it was no longer a safe haven. After his death, his wife, Barbara Cooke, faced a barrage of disputes. Family, business partners, everyone wanted a piece of his estate. Barbara remarried Bobby Womack just over 2 months after Sam's funeral, and the mansion was left to rot, waiting for a buyer, with no more music or guests. Moss soon covered the walkways, curtains stayed drawn and dusty. Some neighbors swore they saw lights flicker in the empty house at night. The chilling rumors spread across the hills, making the mansion impossible to set free. 13. Barry White, the $1 Million Mansion and the quiet collapse of the king of love songs. Barry White was one of R&B's most seductive voices, with Can't Get Enough of Your Love, Babe, and countless timeless hits. He didn't just have a signature deep voice, he built a musical empire. Amid his glory, Barry lived in a lavish Sherman Oaks mansion, once seen as a haven of peace and creativity. But by the late 1990s, cracks began to show. Behind the grand gates at 14700 Ventura Boulevard was a slow-burning series of tragedies that lasted until his final day. In his later years, Barry was drowning in debt from unpaid taxes and massive medical bills. The mansion, a symbol of his power, was threatened with foreclosure by the IRS. The media spared no detail, exposing every document, every desperate negotiation to save his home. The house's air grew tense. Family conflicts flared. The pressure from outside crushed the man who just wanted peace. By 2003, Barry's health plummeted due to chronic kidney disease. The mansion turned into a home care facility, with nurses and doctors coming and going. Hallways once filled with music now echoed with medical equipment and his faint breaths. Loved ones said the house grew cold, as if sensing its owner's end nearing. On July 4, 2003, Barry White passed away in that mansion. You'd think the pain would fade, but no. After his death, estate disputes erupted. The family fought over ownership. The house was dragged into a legal quagmire. 2 years later, with no resolution, the once peaceful haven sat empty, dusty and cold. No one recognized it as the birthplace of timeless love songs anymore. It was just a relic of a once glorious empire, crumbling quietly in chaos. Gerald Levert, the upscale mansion, and a shocking death that turned a haven into a storm. Gerald Levert was a golden voice of R&B, with hits like Casanova dominating the charts. Son of Eddie Levert from the OJs, he carved out a remarkable career, earning millions of fans and prestigious awards. Life seemed perfect in his upscale home in Shaker Heights, Cleveland, but it ended in a way no one saw coming. In November 2006, Gerald was found unconscious in his bedroom at the lavish home on Chagrin Boulevard. No one could save him. The news of his death spread like wildfire. Within hours, reporters descended on the house once filled with music and laughter, now draped in grief. The official cause, an accidental overdose of painkillers. But who could be sure? Rumors exploded uncontrollably. Some suspected the house wasn't just a home, but a place where he sank deeper into painkiller addiction. His family fiercely denied it, insisting he only used prescribed medication for an injury. But the more they defended, the deeper the media dug. Articles detailed items found in his bedroom, smearing Gerald's image in days. It didn't stop there. The house became the center of another battle, a family feud. After his death, Gerald's estate, especially the house, sparked bitter arguments. Some wanted to sell it to settle debts, others insisted on keeping it as a legacy. Everyone had an opinion. News of the family's conflicts leaked, making the house's aura heavier. No one wanted to live in it anymore. A place once a symbol of success and joy became a hub of controversy, piling on more tears, even 2 decades later. People remember that mansion not for its beauty, but for what it witnessed: a sudden death, unanswered questions, and pain no one wants to revisit. 11. Michael Jackson, the eerie mansion where the king of pop's life ended. Michael Jackson was the brightest star on the planet, a modern music icon with mega hits like Thriller, Billie Jean, and Black or White. He reached heights few could dream of, but behind the stage lights, his life was a long battle with pressure, exhaustion, and a tragic end in his Holmby Hills mansion. In 2009, Michael moved into the ultra-luxury mansion at 100 North Carrollwood Drive, in one of LA's wealthiest areas. It was where he prepared for his This Is It tour, billed as his grand comeback after years away. But instead of a revival, the mansion became his grave. On June 25th, the world was stunned when Michael Jackson was declared dead in that house from a propofol overdose. No one could believe a music legend fell just before his return. Inside the mansion, the scene was described as a crime scene. Pill bottles scattered, medical equipment strewn about, an eerily stifling air. His personal doctor, Conrad Murray, meant to protect him, made fatal mistakes. Murray was prosecuted and jailed, but the public wouldn't let up. They demanded who killed Michael Jackson. The mansion became a dark mark in pop music history. After his death, the mansion sat abandoned, cold, and steeped in infamy. The Jackson family sued AEG, the tour's organizer, claiming they pushed Michael to exhaustion. Lengthy trials revealed shocking details of sleepless nights, isolation, and crushing pressure in his final days, all witnessed by that house. Holmby Hills was the superstar's final stop, but after that day, it became a painful memory no one wanted to revisit. 10. Aaliyah, the Manhattan penthouse, and its unrevealed secrets. Aaliyah was one of R&B's biggest icons. With One in a Million, Try Again, and her unmatched charisma, she was seen as music's future. She wasn't just a singer, but an actress, a fashion icon, an heir to the showbiz throne at a young age. but behind the glamour was a heartbreaking end. In her final years, Aaliyah lived in a luxurious Manhattan penthouse, right in the heart of New York, a place most could only dream of. It was where she juggled a relentless schedule, preparing for new albums and films, and a refuge from lingering pain. After the scandal of her illegal marriage to R. Kelly, she nearly vanished from the media. Some say she went dark in that penthouse, cutting off the outside world. Dodging cameras and gossip, the penthouse became a place heavy with pressure, as if she could never breathe freely. Then, in August 2001, Aaliyah died in a plane crash in the Bahamas, stunning the world after her death. The Manhattan penthouse became a focal point again. Family and friends flooded in. Belongings were packed in chaos. Disputes erupted over her estate, her assets, and unreleased music she recorded there. Some claimed those recordings were deliberately hidden. Others said they were stolen. The penthouse was torn apart, stripped of privacy. A few friends revealed Aaliyah felt chills in that penthouse. Rumors spread of bad energy. Fans believed it carried a curse of fame, pressure, and unspoken secrets. It was put up for sale but shunned, as if everyone knew it wasn't just a penthouse. It was where a radiant star quietly broke, day by day. 9. Prince, The Secrets of Paisley Park and a Death That Shocked the World. Prince, the legend behind Purple Rain, wasn't just a singer or songwriter, but an icon of relentless innovation in R&B and funk. He owned Paisley Park, an extravagant complex in Minnesota, where he created, recorded, and hosted iconic music events. It was his private world, his fortress throughout his career. Paisley Park wasn't just a house. It was a true stronghold at 7801 Audubon Road, Chanhassen, Minnesota, equipped with studios, a gym, and private entertainment spaces, a miniature music kingdom. But behind its glamour lay tightly guarded secrets. Rumors of private parties, clandestine meetings, and a reclusive lifestyle began to leak. Some said Prince used Paisley Park to hide serious health issues and addiction, things he kept locked away. His death on April 21, 2016 rocked the world. Found unconscious in the complex's elevator, Prince died from a fentanyl overdose, a powerful drug. The death not only stunned fans but turned Paisley Park into the center of investigations and speculation. Who supplied the drugs? What hidden lifestyle led to that final moment? Unanswered questions made the air around the house heavier, more ominous. It didn't end there after Prince's death. Paisley Park was swept into a bitter ownership dispute. With no will, his family and business partners battled over the property, turning a creative sanctuary into a legal battlefield. A fortress tied to Prince's name became a war zone, making its story even more painful. In the end, no one knows who won the fight, only that a place meant to be a memorial sat abandoned for years in ruin. 8. Lisa Left Eye Lopes, The Burned-Down Mansion and the Dark Mysteries of a Turbulent Life. Lisa Lopes, the fiery member of TLC, left her mark on music and was infamous for a life full of drama and scandals. She lived in a lavish Stone Mountain Atlanta mansion, a hub for wild parties, music creation, and a string of tragic stories. The mansion at 123 Stone Mountain Drive was Lisa's headquarters at her peak, but it was also where her darkest days began. In 1994, an unforgettable scandal erupted in a fit of rage. Lisa set fire to her boyfriend Andre Rison's and NFL star shoes in a bathtub. The flames spiraled out of control, nearly destroying the entire mansion. The fire became a massive scandal, costing millions in damages and leading to arson charges. All eyes turned to Lisa as the one who sparked disaster, leaving a dark stain on her career and personal life. Before that, the mansion saw countless bloody arguments between Lisa and Andre. Their conflicts weren't just verbal, but included mutual accusations of domestic violence. The media feasted on it, turning the house into the epicenter of a chaotic tragedy, shaking Lisa's reputation. A space once a creative paradise became an emotional battlefield full of scars. Lisa's sudden death on April 25, 2002, in a horrific car crash in Honduras pushed her story to its darkest end. Family and friends fought over her estate, especially the Stone Mountain Mansion, even after it was bought and renovated years later. It remained a symbol of a young star's tragic ups and downs, a life of chaos, yet burning passion for music. 7. Tupac Shakur, the mysterious Woodland Hills mansion and the conspiracies behind his death. Tupac Shakur, the hip-hop legend behind All Eyes on Me, owned a mansion in Woodland Hills, Los Angeles, where he rested and created in his final years. The house wasn't just a home, but tied to the dramatic stories surrounding his life. The mansion at 2100 Ventura Boulevard was the center of everything before Tupac was gunned down in 1996. It wasn't just a retreat, but a hotspot for the simmering conflicts of the infamous East Coast-West Coast feud. Before the drive-by shooting in Las Vegas took his life, the house was broken into, and rivals openly threatened him there. The mysteries around those break-ins only added to the horror of his world-shaking death. It was also where Tupac and Death Row Records members threw lavish parties, but not always joyful ones. Tensions with label boss Suge Knight and heated arguments over money and contracts played out within those walls. Every party could turn into a verbal sparring match, creating a heavy, dangerous vibe. The mansion wasn't just a home, it was the heart of a storm of conflicts, burying dreams and fragile friendships. After Tupac's death, the house was quickly abandoned, becoming a symbol of loss and chaos. His family, especially his mother, Afeni Shakur, faced endless legal battles over the mansion and other assets. The lawsuits dragged on, leaving the once vibrant home cold and dark. The Woodland Hills mansion is no longer just property, it's a land of mysteries, conspiracies, and unresolved pain tied to Tupac's legacy. 6. The notorious B.I.G., the Brooklyn Mansion, and the horrific stories within. The notorious B.I.G., the hip-hop legend behind Ready to Die, spent much of his life in a Fort Greene, Brooklyn home, deeply tied to his family and friends. It was more than a home, it was the center of the storms that defined his life and career. The house at 226 St. James Place wasn't just a residence, but a shrine to some of hip-hop's heaviest dramas. Though Biggie was killed in Los Angeles in 1997, this Brooklyn home was the hub of negotiations and even threats before his death. It's said that Biggie received blunt warnings and silent but terrifying threats there, fueling the bloody, tense East Coast-West Coast war. The house became a temple for an unresolved tragedy, revered by fans. It was also where high-stakes meetings with Puff Daddy and Bad Boy Records artists unfolded. Parties and heated debates over contracts and money raged within these walls. Rumors of financial disputes and music rights haunted the house, turning it into a hidden battlefield where friendship, money, and fame collided chaotically. The tension escalated, adding to the pressure on Biggie's shoulders. After his death, the house became a gathering place for family on his memorial days, but also the center of legal battles, especially between his mother, Voletta Wallace, and those tied to his music and property estate. The prolonged fights made the air stifling, marked by loss and chaos. The Brooklyn house now stands as a cold, lonely witness, visited only once a year to honor its owner, holding all the secrets, pain, and conspiracies behind the notorious B.I.G.'s storied yet infamous career. 5. Eazy-E, the Calabasas Mansion, and the AIDS tragedy that shook hip-hop. Eazy-E, the NWA pioneer who shaped hip-hop and R&B, owned a mansion in Calabasas, California. It was where he rested and ran Ruthless Records, the label that made him a legend in the 90s. The mansion at 23800 Malibu Road became the focus of Eazy-E's final days. Just a month before his death in March 1995, he was diagnosed with AIDS, a shock that rocked the hip-hop world. The house's air grew grim, with doctors and family in and out, filled with fear, panic, and wild rumors about the deadly disease. the media hounded it relentlessly, turning the mansion into a battleground of untold secrets, with questions about the disease's origins and years of hidden truths. Beyond a retreat. The house was a tense arena for internal conflicts with NWA members. Explosive meetings with Dr. Dre and Ice Cube erupted within its walls. Fights over money and control of Ruthless Records hit fever pitch, with heated negotiations as everyone vied for power. The mansion became a hotbed of betrayal and ruthless rivalry, a hidden world of drama beyond the stage lights. After Eazy-E's sudden death, the mansion was no longer a peaceful home. It became a flashpoint for fierce legal battles, especially between his wife, Tamika Woods Wright, and former business partners, abandoned for nearly 8 years amid disputes. It stands as a symbol of tragedy, chaos, and the unresolved mysteries of Eazy-E's legacy. 4. Static Major, the Highlands home, and a medical death that stunned R&B. Static Major, tied to massive R&B hits like Lollipop with Lil Wayne, lived in Louisville, Kentucky, where he grew up and built his career. His Highlands home was his anchor, where he created music that captivated the world. But tragedy struck on February 25, 2008. Static didn't die at home, but in a Louisville hospital, from complications of a routine medical procedure, a catheter. A simple operation took the life of a talent at his peak, leaving the music world reeling. The Highlands home, where he once peacefully created, was steeped in gloom after his death. Fans and friends came to mourn, making the space even more somber. But the story doesn't end there. That house wasn't just where he lived, it also held stacks of unreleased recordings, from projects with Aaliyah to tracks with Lil Wayne. After his death, family and producers dove into a fierce battle over the rights to those precious recordings. The arguments and lawsuits dragged on, extending the endless tragedy, leaving people wondering if Static Major's musical legacy was truly being preserved. There's more. Rumors about Static Major's lifestyle also made the house infamous in a less than positive way. They say it was where he threw wild parties, hosting music industry heavyweights, which sparked plenty of accusations about a reckless lifestyle. Though unproven, these rumors tarnished the house's image, turning it into a trap between the glitz of the spotlight and the chaotic personal life of a talented but short-lived star. 3. Heavy D, the Beverly Hills mansion that witnessed a final tragedy amid financial scandals and family feuds. Heavy D, an unforgettable name in R&B and hip-hop with hits like Now That We Found Love, lived in a luxurious mansion on Rodeo Drive, Beverly Hills. It was his haven, a stage for key meetings, and a retreat after hectic days. But the 2000s weren't just glamorous. The opulent mansion became a hotspot for relentless troubles. Heavy D faced crippling financial issues from failed investments. The house, a symbol of success, was threatened with foreclosure, sparking intense conflicts with those closest to him. The media pounced, exposing his financial downfall, making the mansion's atmosphere stifling and heavy. The tragedy peaked on November 8, 2011, when Heavy D was found unconscious outside the mansion. A pulmonary embolism, a sudden death, shocked the world. The mansion became the media's focus, dissecting his final hours, where life and death clashed brutally. The house turned into a stage for heartbreaking stories. It didn't end there. His death sparked fierce family disputes over the mansion and estate. Some wanted to sell to cover mounting costs. Others fought to keep it as Heavy D's last symbol. The tension spread, turning the once peaceful home into a battleground. No one stayed. A house once filled with laughter and music now carries the marks of struggle and loss. 2. ODB, the chaotic Brooklyn home and a death by drugs. ODB, the explosive Wu-Tang Clan star, was an icon of 90s and 2000s R&B and hip-hop. His home on Putnam Avenue in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn, was where he returned to family and friends, creating iconic music. But behind the fame was a string of scandals centered on that house. It wasn't just a home, but a hotspot for police raids tied to drugs and weapons. In 1999, a high-profile arrest near the house drew all eyes to Bedford-Stuyvesant, making it a hub of serious legal troubles. Chaos and tension engulfed the neighborhood, as ODB's name became tied to controversy as much as music. The trouble didn't stop there. On November 13, 2004, ODB died suddenly in a Manhattan studio. But the Brooklyn house remained the focus. It was a furnace of chaos, reflecting a life of addiction and the darkest moments of a fading star. After his death, the tragedy continued with bitter family fights over the house and other assets. It ceased to be a home, becoming a battleground for tense disputes. Even as a gathering spot for Wu-Tang fans, it was frequently trespassed, adding to the chaos. The house, once a familiar refuge, now stands as a symbol of pain, destruction, and a life unraveled in the place he called home. 1. Sean Taylor, the Miami mansion, witness to a horrific nighttime robbery. Sean Taylor, the NFL star tied to the R&B and hip-hop scene, owned a luxurious mansion in Palmetto Bay, Miami. It was his sanctuary with family and friends, a peaceful retreat that seemed untouchable. But that mansion became the scene of a horrific tragedy on November 27, 2007. That night, a group of robbers didn't just steal belongings, they left a wound that shook the sports and music worlds. Sean, trying to protect his family from the brutal intrusion, was shot in his own home. His sudden, painful death sent shockwaves across America, turning the mansion from a haven into a symbol of loss. Police and media swarmed, scrutinizing every corner, every bullet, every scream was recounted like a cruel verdict on Sean's short life. Even before that, the mansion wasn't as calm as it seemed. Heated arguments with friends and veiled threats from hip-hop connections created a tense atmosphere. Earlier in 2007, a prior break-in had warned of looming dangers, but only after Sean's death did the reality of his conflicted, unstable life in the mansion come to light. After he passed, the mansion fell silent. His family couldn't bear to sell, but left it abandoned for years, weighed down by too much pain. So there you have it, 19 abandoned mansions, each hiding tragic, unsolved stories. What do you think about the ghosts of the past haunting these places? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to catch more videos unlocking the doors of other luxurious mansions.